Okay, let's dive right into this. We're looking at some truly wild scenes coming out of Iran. In cities like Tehran, you've got these massive crowds gathering for a ritual that looks, well, it looks ancient, but also super modern at the same time. They're burning these huge effigies of a long-dead god, but with a very familiar and very controversial face attached.
So yeah, this is the big question, right? How in the world do you connect a former American president to an ancient Middle Eastern deity? And what does any of that have to do with the geopolitical tensions that are just boiling over right now? It's a really bizarre combination, so let's break down the logic the protesters are actually using.
To even begin to make sense of these images, we have to understand the pressure cooker environment inside Iran at this very moment. This isn't happening in a vacuum. It's a symptom of a nation that is completely on edge.
So right now, Iran is in the middle of celebrating the 47th anniversary of its 1979 Islamic Revolution, which, is a massive cornerstone of its national identity. But this party is happening under a very dark cloud. There's a real, palpable fear of an impending war, and that fear gets cranked up to 11 with the news that U.S. aircraft carriers are moving towards the region. So what you end up with is this potent mix of intense nationalistic pride and just widespread anxiety.
Okay, so how do you get from that general feeling of national anxiety to burning these specific effigies? Well, this is where the story takes a sharp turn, away from geopolitics and straight into the wild world of global conspiracy theories, connecting three names you would never, ever expect to hear in the same sentence.
First, let's talk about the main character here, Baal. Thousands of years ago, he was a major deity, a big deal in the ancient Middle East. Today, no major religion still worships him, but in modern conspiracy circles, his name has been kind of revived as this powerful shorthand for an ancient, deep-seated evil.
For the protesters, the first piece of this puzzle dropped with the recently unsealed files of Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, we're talking thousands of pages of shocking details, but buried deep in all of that, a single, strange word caught the eye of conspiracy theorists all over the globe.
And this is it. An alleged email, reportedly from Epstein himself, that requested a payment be sent to an account simply named Baal. For many people, this was the smoking gun. This, they claimed, was proof of a connection between Epstein's horrific crimes and the worship of this ancient symbol of evil.
So here's how the protesters' logic unfolds step by step. They start with Baal as the ultimate symbol of evil. Then, they see that name pop up in Epstein's files. Next, they connect Epstein to Trump. And so, in their view, the conclusion is simple. Trump, the U.S., and their allies like Israel are all part of this same malevolent network.
And this isn't just a narrative being built from obscure emails. It's being amplified by explosive and incredibly serious accusations being made within the American political system itself, with some politicians making claims just like this during official hearings.
Now, it is absolutely critical that we state this clearly. At this point, these are unproven allegations. No definitive evidence has been publicly presented to substantiate these claims. But the accusations themselves are powerful fuel for the fire that we're seeing in Iran. And to give you a sense of the scale of these claims, some U.S. politicians allege that in the fully unredacted files, Trump's name appears over 1 million times. Now, whether that's true or not is almost irrelevant for the protesters in Iran. For them, a number like that is seized as undeniable proof of a deep, sinister connection.
This brings us to the strategy behind these fiery displays. This isn't just spontaneous anger boiling over. No, this is a calculated act. It's a form of psychological warfare.
By creating and burning these effigies, the protesters are hitting several targets at once. First, they demonize their adversaries, the U.S. and Israel, by tying them to a universal symbol of evil. This, in turn, helps galvanize their own population, reframing a political conflict as a moral crusade. And of course, in the modern age, these powerful images are designed to go viral and shape the global narrative.
But while these symbolic fires are burning in the streets for everyone to see, a much more tangible preparation for conflict is happening out of sight. Iran is getting ready for a very real, non-symbolic fight.
And here is the stark contrast. On one hand, you have the symbolic war being fought with fire and effigies in the streets, but on the other, out of sight, a much more real conflict is being prepared for. Satellite imagery shows Iran actively fortifying its underground nuclear sites, pouring massive amounts of concrete to shield them from American bunker-buster bombs.
So, that's where we are.
A nation using ancient symbols to fight a modern psychological war, all while preparing for a very real military conflict. It leaves us with a critical question. What happens when the symbolic fires of protest become the very real fires of war?